Welcome to another episode of the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. Today, Emily and I are going to talk through what a really effective and resilient team culture looks like and feels like for a team and a business. So, let's unpack what a healthy team culture looks like.
We are child development obsessed, business besties, and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzy Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackie, Australian speech pathologist,
and this is the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast.
All right, Em, I feel like this is your time to shine. I feel like you're like team culture guru. Because you are emotionally intelligent, like naturally very, very emotionally intelligent. And I think having a leader like that in the business is really, really helpful to get that culture flowing.
Thank you, Lizzy. I didn't know you were going to say those nice
Welcome.
things. That's nice. I was thinking that when I finished, I guess, school, well, like there's culture everywhere, right? Like there's culture at school, but no one ever sat down, or not sat down. I never heard about culture. Did you? Like I remember, I never knew anything about how people were to behave or what they were supposed to do, or you sort of just put your own impressions on things. And then I remember when I first started my first job, my mum said to me, there's a lot of red flags in what you're telling me about this workplace. It doesn't sound like it's a very good culture. And I said to her, no, mum, like that's fine. This is culture. This is what it's supposed to be. And my mum is like, no, not really. And that was sort of like the extent of the first time I've ever discussed like an environment, I guess, or this concept of culture. And it was only when I started to speak about that, then I had to facilitate a team with others, that I was like, what is culture? What are people talking about? What does this actually mean? Do I have a good workplace or do I not? Do I have a good culture or do I not?
And isn't it like probably the most important thing? I feel like it's
Absolutely.
so incredibly important. And it's also something that isn't fixed. It's not like when you've got a good culture, it just rolls. It's something that you've continuously got to work on and pour like time and money into and energy into, because it's something that is like a living, moving.
It's like the
feeling.
personality of your business or your company. I remember thinking, I think I've got a good culture. But then in the early days, certain things would happen and I would turn around thinking, where did that come from? That means we don't have a good culture. And so then you constantly, as a leader, you go, do I think this way and other people think a different way? Like, how do I know everyone's on the same page with culture or with anything? And then you go, okay, so like my response to that was, okay, I'm just going to throw a whole bunch of perks at my employees. So I want to incentivize people. I want to give good culture. So, we have good salaries. Oh, we might add this perk in and this perk in and this perk in. And then I remember then adding whatever they were in, and then they were like shiny for like a couple of months and then they lost their value. And I remember thinking, we have good culture because we have these perks, or we have these good things that people get, to reward them or whatever. And then a business coach said to me, no, like, what are you doing? Like perks are only perks and they only have a value for a certain amount of time. Culture is not perks. And so let's talk about what culture is. What is culture to you, Lizzy? Or what's your journey with understanding it?
Oh, I feel like yeah, I've had like moments. Yeah, like I say, I feel like it's quite transient and it's something that, ebbs and flows a little bit based on maybe the climate whether that's, what's happening, in the community or, earlier this year there was a cyclone. And so I feel like that kind of can disrupt. Or, if it's fragile, if there's a culture that's fragile, like something like that can really impact what's going on within a team. But I feel like my journey, I feel like I've found the culture side of things really hard. I'm quite emotional, and I feel like business has been such a big self-development journey for me. It's not something that be probably came naturally to me. Like, it was something that I found quite hard. I care about what others think, and it probably can't, like, there's some self-worth wounds in there, and I feel like that can really impact it. So, and then, like I would have said, I had an amazing culture at Northside in the last few years, and we've just had a massive turnover and had some really unexpected things happen. And I'm like, oh, maybe the culture wasn't what I thought it was. So I think I've had an interesting journey with it. And I think at the end of the day, I think that it's been a really big personal journey. And I think that's why I say to you, like, I feel like I've really noticed and witnessed your emotional intelligence and learned that. And I think that that's something that I've really had to work on. I feel like I'm there now, and I feel like I've been through a lot in the last 12 months, and I've come out the other side, and I feel like I've handled it personally quite well, and my mindset's still quite strong. So I feel like I've come a really long way, but it's something that has been a journey, and something I probably find the hardest thing in business, one of the hardest things.
I think most people do, right? Because it's with people, and people are all different, and it's bringing, so like, your culture is the personality of your business, so to speak. And so you've got, like, it's the personality of your company, which is, like, driven by your values. And it's not just like values on the wall, it's actually like how people behave every day. And then you have, say, whatever, even if it's 2 people, 2 to 20, 30, 40 people coming in, and they all then have their own personalities. And so it's, how do we put everyone's personalities in so that they all feel heard and they all feel like they have a voice? Everyone is treated uniquely, but then we all have a shared culture or a shared common ground or a shared personality. And we don't want to be clones either. Like, if we're all clones, like, that's a bit boring. So we all want to bring the same thing. It's like, when you just break it down like that, it's really hard. Like, it's so difficult to do. I think for me, what has been one of my superpowers, someone pointed out to me recently, was that I just implement stuff like really quickly. And I think that's a skill that I've only realized recently, like, and articulated. You can read a lot. Like, there's actually a lot of books, a lot of podcasts on culture and things. And it's just then trying stuff. And I think sometimes I don't think things through. And so just put it in, and you just go, all right, we're just going to do this. And then you go, hang on, that didn't work. But if I had actually sat and thought it through, then I'd probably be like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, or like indecision, I'm not sure. And so that implementing quickly has served me with this.
So what I find tricky, I think, as well, because I'm quite a logical brain, is that there's no, like, clear way to identify if you're like, there's no way to measure culture really. So, well, I think no kind of like numbers way to measure culture. So how can we tell if we've got a good culture?
Well, this is what I have learnt. Like, I agree with numbers, it is really hard, but we have recently in Speak About put in a results meeting with our team at the end of every quarter. And so I feel like that in some regards is a little bit of a measure of our culture, because what is culture? Culture is like your personality. It's like totally like values led, but it's sort of like, oh, it's, what did you say? Sorry?
I said mindset.
Mindset. It's sort of like, I feel like the best way to know your company's culture is to sit at lunch in the lunchroom, or to sit with people, or to stand with people while they're walking to their car, or listen to them, while you walk somewhere to maybe get coffees. That is the culture, because that's the personality. So it's what's coming out in people's behavior and what they're thinking. So mindset, what they're saying, how they feel, and if they feel like they belong,
Mm.
right? And if they feel
Yeah.
safe and if they feel heard. But so like it's really easy to say that though. Like it's how do you actually get people to be like that and to be themselves and to be vulnerable and transparent enough so that if there is an issue in the workplace that they come up and talk to you
Yes.
about it rather than leaving or sitting on it or developing resentment or gossiping in the lunchroom about something. And so I think it takes a lot of time. I don't think it's something that you can build quickly. And it's really hard because, if you're in a startup or you're in a new role as a leader, you want to do really well, really quickly, and you want things to go and work really well. But it's like human connection, right? It's like relationships, and you just need time to develop that. But obviously having the right people in the right seats, I think helps. So it's
Yeah.
if we're talking about business, it's definitely the process to help measure it is to get the right people into your company who are the right values driven, values aligned, results aligned people. If you don't have the right people in the right seats, I think that can destroy your culture and your workplace because people become unhappy because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, living their
And
potential.
I 100% agree with that. And then I would say, and this is something that I probably have struggled with because I'm not a details person, but something that I've implemented more recently, which is really helping. And I think that's really clear roles and responsibilities. So
Mm,
the expectations are really clear that everyone knows what everyone's doing, everyone knows what everyone's role is. And I
mm,
think that um, it just takes a lot of confusion and I don't know, like uncertainty off the table.
mm,
I think it's really clear. And I think that makes a really big difference, like that clear expectations, clear roles, the right people in the roles, and thorough communication.
mm. And we read in our book, remember how we were reading Performance for Coaching? We did a couple of
Mhm.
podcast episodes about that. In the beginning of that book, it talks about Maslow's needs hierarchy, right?
Hierarchy of
So he
needs.
has a traditional hierarchy. In this coaching book, they put the hierarchy of employees in a workplace or anyone in an environment, right, in a culture. And so, the basis of that is is what you're saying, like, clear roles and responsibility, communication, and building those blocks. And then on top of that, then becomes a sense of belonging and then accountability and then ownership, which is ownership, I think,
Mm.
is the top of the pinnacle of, culture, because people start taking ownership for how they want to be treated, how they want to speak at work, how they want people to feel at work, and, their influence. So yes, we definitely need communication. We definitely need systems. We need people to be clear on what they are and are not doing. Um,
And I
but it
think
doesn't just
that
stop there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that all needs to feed into a common goal. Like we're all working towards a common goal, a mission, a purpose. So we're purpose driven and we know who's doing what, which is exactly what we went through with the Pat Lencioni's
Mm,
Advantage book.
mm,
That like me putting that playbook into action into both my businesses. And I feel like I've only just kind of finalized that and I'm implementing it's part of our onboarding process now. And I feel like that is making a really big difference because everyone knows everyone's roles,
mm,
everyone knows our purpose, all our communication goes to that. Our KPAs are associated with that purpose, and it's tied to our roles and responsibilities, and it's communicated.
mm. I think that's the benefits of a small business. In large
Mm.
corporations, it can be really hard to do things quickly. Everything's got to go through so many different channels. So, you're like, I've just going to improve the communication so you can, you can
Yeah.
implement the things. The other thing is with culture, like in big workplaces, there's a lot more people to manage and personalities. So you need to make sure that you've got leaders across small teams, because the smaller each team, you have more accountability. That all contributes to a bigger team and a bigger
Yeah.
culture. But the results, I think, are in the right people in the right seats, having people stay, like retention. Even though you said that you've had a mass resignation at Northside, you haven't though for a very long period beforehand.
No, no.
So
And
that's
it's
like
not mass either. It wasn't mass. It was two people. So it's not mass. It's just
yeah.
it felt big because I hadn't in years.
So that's what I mean. Like it's sort of like looking at that in perspective, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Like, what have I
Perspective.
done?
Yeah. But I think it's also people feeling like they are productive and fulfilled. They have good mental health. But another key for me, and I don't know if this is biased because I am invention and I love creativity, but it is
Mm,
innovation. So if people are in a good supportive workplace, they will come and be like, okay, I've actually seen this. This is like an issue in business. Can I help? Or like, I found a gap in the business. I feel like I need to do this to help, or I've done that. And our team are so good at doing that. Like they'll notice a gap in the resources and they'll be like, oh, I just created this resource and just put it in. Um, and so like innovation shows me that people are engaged in the workplace. They want to be there. They want to contribute to that common goal, and they feel like it's a healthy balance and they have the time to do that. And I feel like fear is a pretty big one in a lot of
mm.
workplaces. Like, oh, should I step out and do that? Oh, I don't want to be looking like I'm stepping on someone's toes. Or, it like you said, it comes down to clear expectations and communication, but it's also like a
Yeah, well, it's
feeling,
that
right? Like,
psychological
oh, I add
safety,
value and I
isn't
can
it?
contribute. Yeah, yeah. I think that is so important. You have to psychologically feel safe, and research says that
100%.
as
Like
well.
that is like I think that is the most important thing. And I've seen at times in my businesses where that has not been there, and it can be catastrophic.
Mm,
Like
mhm.
it can all fall apart if the people in your team don't feel
Yeah,
psychologically
yeah,
safe.
absolutely. Like that's a basic human need, isn't it? But I find
Yeah.
that, or what I've experienced myself, like, and I guess this would be work and personally, like, because culture is everywhere. Culture is all around us. It's who we're influencing. It's our families, groups of people.
Yeah.
So what actually makes people feel psychologically unsafe is
Mm.
when they feel like they may be judged, or when there might be fear, or when there might be an attack or shame. And that inadvertently comes through when people gossip about what
Blame.
other people are doing, kind of like, I'm going to say behind closed doors, but it might not be. It might be like in the lunchroom, or it might be just a slight offhanded thing. And so people don't realize, oh, like some people might be like, I just need to vent, or whatever. But if you do it in a very unhealthy way, that actually breaks that culture, because then people don't feel like they can step out. They have the psychological safety there. And I have witnessed that at Speak About in my early days as I was trying to understand culture and build that, and it's sort of through a lot of failures and a lot of really, really bad experiences that I have understood that. And
Yeah.
the leader needs to, if that is happening in a workplace, it is the leader's job to shut it down
Yeah.
ASAP. And so if leaders then don't say anything and let those things sort of slide or happen,
Mm.
that is so toxic. So
Yeah.
toxic.
Yeah.
And then as a leader, you need to get over yourself, because, like it's hard to confront people. It's hard to, like
Mm.
in those moments, it's not naturally in us to, do things like that.
Yeah.
So it's hard, right?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I find that stuff so incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And I've had some really hard times um over over my time in business, really.
Mhm.
So yeah, one of the conversations I had with Lorraine, which really had an impact on me, was I said I wanted to have a good culture. And she's like, how can you tell if you've got a good culture. And I was like, oh, I don't even know. And we kind of landed on which she prompted me to, which is having like a lineup of people wanting to work with you, which I just thought was really, really cool. And yeah,
That would be the result of a good culture.
yeah, yeah. And something that I measure that through is our students. So we take students that come on, and every student that works with us wants to work with us. Like every student who does placement with us wants a
Oh, that's a
position,
good
and I get it.
measure. That's a good measure.
And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, we must be doing something really well if these people are spending, I don't know how many weeks is it 6 weeks or whatever it is with us, and then they want to work with us, and they say it's like their favorite track. So I feel like that's kind of really been good for me in terms of this last little bit when I have had to recruit, because I have had people leave, and I've had people to pull from. Like I've had a pool of people to pull from, which has made me just feel a little bit better about it and just go, oh, maybe it I have, something really strong in the team. I definitely feel really good in my teams. So I think that's, another indicator. And the other one I think is quite powerful is that the wrong people stick out. So if you've got someone that isn't aligned with your values and your culture, it will feel off. Like they will feel like it doesn't quite fit in with the team, like those people that aren't the right fit.
And it's not a bad thing, right? Like it's just going that every person has a different skill set, and not every person is right for every single job. And
No.
it's like working through, you want people to feel like really happy, really satisfied, really fulfilled in, say, you and I, our workplaces, but whatever workplace they're in. And so then it's just moving on and finding a workplace that will align with that person's values to make them feel fulfilled and to have that vision for themselves. So, I think you should like going to work every day, right? That's a good result of a culture and not having to force yourself.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I have found most recently, probably in the last 2 to 3 years, is like obviously burnout. It's a big hot topic. Culture should either be this, like culture can be the source of your burnout, or it can protect you from the burnout. And I think that's what we have done really well in the last few years at Speak About, as we've really intentionally focused on it and learned and developed, is we have protected our team from burnout. And this is 12 months ago, I asked the team in a huddle, is anyone burnt out? And everyone was like shocked that I asked them that. They're like, why are you asking us? Like, we're totally fine. Everyone, like, we are so happy. We're just feeling so balanced. We have enough time for everything. And I was like, so our culture has protected them from that burnout. And it's sort of been like a wall. You've got like burnout team, and then the culture is the wall, and it doesn't come through. And I feel like when you look at a lot of people's stories who have been out, including our own, the culture around us is either not supportive or it's not helping. So that is a big contributing factor, I think, to
That
burnout.
that is freaking so spot on. Like I'm just thinking of my experience and the times that I have just been like just exhausted and can't quite get on top over and over again, and just thinking about the culture at the time, and just like thinking how much I'm coping with right now, and the culture and how supported I'm feeling by my teams, and just thinking like if this had been another time in the business when I didn't have that support from the team, then and they weren't like they burnt out, whereas now they're not burnt out, so they can kind of carry a little bit extra. I think that's really, really spot on.
And it's
Love
something to think about if you are feeling, you're burning out, you're burnt out, you're on the edge of it, you're worried about it. It's so important that you find a workplace that has a good culture. And we have defined what good culture is. So good culture is not just putting up with things. Good culture is not just being like, oh, well, I'll just see how it goes. I'm going to wait to be acted upon and see, what happens. Good culture is actually, you know, no toxic, no turnover, good team dynamics, good creativity in your workplace, good well-being, people are staying, good client outcomes, making sure that our children are actually achieving their goals. That's a big part of culture. Um, there's so many things, but at the end of the day, it's that feeling of you belong, that feeling that you can be vulnerable, you show yourself. There's no negative punishment or things like that, and no biases or bribery in a workplace. People aren't, going, I'll give you money to make you be quiet. But it's a lot of things like, oh, if you do your own report, the admin will treat you better. No, no. And you don't live in fear of the admin,
Yeah,
like things like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
There can be a bit of a power play within lots of
yeah.
different organizations, and these things just shift in without, you even realize. So reflect on where you are, reflect on your workplace, reflect on what the culture is in your workplace, reflect on your attitude to your workplace, I think is a good exercise to take from this episode. Look at what's happening when no one is around. What are you feeling when people aren't around in the workplace, like, in yourself? What is happening in the lunch break? What is the conversation at the lunch table? What are people talking about when they go for a coffee? If people are bickering, it's not a good culture. Not a good culture. you know but I would also say that you will not find a perfect work culture. Speak About is not perfect. Northside Allied Health, Kids Heart Parties, we're not perfect because we're people. And the
Yeah.
thing is, everyone will have a disagreement or a grievance with someone or feel frustrated, a lot of the time, because that's who we are. The workplace, though, should foster you know, healthy conversations around that. So it's not we go into the lunch break and we pull half of the team aside into a little powwow and vent about how we didn't like something. There's healthy channels for how that can be done. And there's good, like, relationships that we know, okay, we can go to that person and talk about it and solve the issue, not just have these little segue conversations. So I would say, like, it's important that in a workplace how to handle things because you will have feelings. That's just normal. But it's that things are dealt with. And I think that's also the beautiful thing about a small business is there's not too many lines of, chains of line to the people who can actually deal with things. Sometimes in a really big corporation, it can be difficult to change the culture or difficult to address things. So again, it's just food for thought. But it's knowing, knowing, being aware, isn't it?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, we hope this has given you a little bit of food for thought for culture. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Please, if you're loving the podcast, leave a 5-star review. We'd love to know what you think under the channels. And until next time, we will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.